Good morning. This is Luke Revin, manager here at East Brandywine Township. I'm addressing you in my capacity as online moderator for this work session of the Board of Supervisors. Due to the coronavirus pandemic and to protect the health and safety of Township officials and our residents, the Board is conducting this meeting by webinar. The meeting is being recorded and will be rebroadcast on the Township's YouTube channel. Public notice of this meeting was posted on the Township's website consistent with Act 15 of 2020. The agenda for this meeting was also posted on the website at ebrandywine.org/agenda center. The agenda is also visible on your screen. Members of the public can hear us, but your own phones and computer microphones are muted, so we cannot hear you. To enable an organized meeting, please note the following procedure. As with in-person meetings, I ask that all participants wait to be recognized by the chairman before speaking, and that all comments be directed to the chairman. To be recognized, you must first ask me, in my capacity as moderator, to unmute your audio connection. You may request this at any time via the chat feature located on the left side of the screen. Each person recognized by the chairman should state their name and their address before asking a question. I'll now turn the meeting over to Chairman Winters.
Good morning. Welcome to East Brandywine Township Board of Supervisors work session on February 4th. Do we have any public comment on agenda items? Luke, do you see any?
I've received no requests to unmute microphone.
Okay. Let's move on to the minutes of the previous meetings, The minutes of December 3rd, as well as the minutes of January 4th, 2021.
No, if there are no changes, I'll make a motion to approve the Board of Supervisors minutes for December 3rd, 2020 and January 4th, 2021.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's go to the reports, the manager's report.
Right. This is a very late addition to your packet. My apologies. At the January 21st meeting of the Board of Supervisors, the board gave direction to me on the frequency of reporting. The standing direction to my predecessor had been weekly reports. The new model is for each meeting of the Board of Supervisors, I will prepare a report. So late last night, you received a report from me. I can either read it or we can continue with the same procedure we use for the regular sessions, which is to accept the report. Just make a motion to accept the report. I'll leave that to you, Mr. Chairman.
That's really up to the board members as well. Kyle, George, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay. I read it thoroughly through. I think it's outstanding. I think it's something that's been needed for a long, long time, and I think you did a great job with it. Thanks.
I would agree. Then do I have a motion to approve the manager's report?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the manager's report.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. No problem. Thank you, Luke. Let's move on to old business. The next steps for the Scenic Bypass Overlay District language developed by the Ordinance Task Force. Jay Fisher, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
I'm glad to see you and Kyle are at least observing National Sweater Day. There was no public comment for non-agenda items, so if I may indulge you fellas for a moment. I just wanted to commend Matt Van Loo and the Public Works crew on the job that they've done for the two snows that we've had this season. Tuesday morning, when I headed out at about 10:30, Clover Lane was completely clear from side to side. I got to Corner Catch Road. It was 4 tracks at best. Some points it was completely snow covered. And it wasn't until I got to 322 that the state roads were clear. And so I think they need to be commended for the great job that they're doing on snow removal. With that, I'll move on to the Scenic Byway. I'm sure Kyle and Jason remember that this has been hanging around for some period of time. The Ordinance Task Force has been working on this Scenic Byway Overlay District amendment to the zoning ordinance. And it came up, it's been on the agenda for the Ordinance Task Force month after month. And we had a discussion at the last meeting and decided that we wanted to get a sense from the board if we should continue our work on this draft ordinance, or whether the board was not interested in pursuing this kind of regulation. So I know Mr. Sherbach hasn't been really in the loop on this, so I don't know, and I don't know how much Jason, you and Kyle remember about this. If it's something that you're interested in pursuing, perhaps we could have a meeting where we do just a presentation on this, so that we can bring everybody up to speed. Or if it's something that you're familiar enough with and or want us to pursue, we will continue to pursue it.
Thank you. I know me personally. I do remember the presentation that was provided to us last year. I'm pretty. I haven't seen it if there's any revisions to the last, to the last proposed, as far as language. But I don't know how. I'm personally at this point. I feel that I would prefer not to see the township go in that direction. I'll let that up to Kyle and George to discuss as well. I don't know if George or Kyle, do you remember the bypass ordinance?
Yes, and from what I recall at the time, our solicitor was stating that there was a little bit too much government intervention on that. I think there was some discussion on what could actually be forced. I don't want to use, it's a strong word, but forced on a homeowner versus what was shall or will, in terms of doing certain things to their property. I don't know, like Jason said, I don't know if anything's changed on that since the last time we talked about it, but I know that was her biggest concern, that there was some forceful hands pertaining to it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there were some amendments and changes made to it since that discussion. And for George's benefit, what this does is identify specific areas in the township which are considered significantly scenic, and then imposes on the property owner a requirement that they do basically a review of the scenic aspects of their property, and would require them, if they develop that property, it would regulate how they develop the property in order to minimize the impacts on the scenic view sheds from their property, or in the case of historic structures, blocking views of historic structures and things of that nature.
Jay, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah.
You just said develop, and I guess that's a key word here. I don't have a problem if it were for larger parcels that were going to be developed, developments, big scale things, anything over, say, 15, 20 acres. Me personally, I don't have a problem with that. But if it was the smaller 1 or 2 acre parcels, where if they wanted to put a pool in the backyard and the township required them to put trees in the front yard, that's where I think we were running into that issue. So are you saying, not are you saying, but is it more going to be for larger properties, or just for all properties that would fall in the Scenic Byway?
I don't think it's limited to just large developments. So individual property owners, for instance, that were putting an addition on their historic structure or their house, would have to comply if the property is in the designated scenic areas. So it doesn't cover 100% of the township. It just covers what has been identified as scenic areas. And John Gatt and David Sweet drove all over the township, and they have a map that defines exactly where the scenic areas are.
George, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I tried to read through it last night and try to, understand what was the purpose. And I guess I hear that the purpose is to preserve scenic views from this point on. I guess it affects future developments. It could affect existing homeowners as well.
George, it would only affect existing homeowners if they were doing improvements to the property.
Okay. So for the most part, this involves the future developers that are going to be developing pieces of land going forward.
Or any permit, George. If you apply for a building permit, say for a deck,
permit, right,
or anything, then you would, if you're in that scenic bypass designated area, you would have to go before that would be just looked at as far as what would the impact be visually with your project.
And there is a map that has identified those scenic areas that could be subject to this ordinance.
Yes,
that's correct. The ordinance itself would adopt what we call the Scenic Byway Overlay District, and those would be identified on a map of what properties within what area come within that regulation.
Okay.
Hey, Jay, do you know off the top of your head how many individual parcels this affects?
I do not. I mean,
Okay.
I could certainly find out, pull the map up, and perhaps we can get a number, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Because the other thing is, I guess my thought would be, again, I just don't like the strong verbiage of shall and will, will. But maybe if it were to be suggestive language and a monetary value. So in other words, if somebody's doing a swimming pool in their backyard, we want them to put in $50,000 worth of trees in the front yard. I think that's excessive. Now, if we capped a value at this work to be, say, $500 to $1,000 of improvements to the view shed, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But again, I think the suggestive word has to be, recommended. It's a strong pill to swallow when it's forced on somebody who might be on a tight budget to do a project anyway.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just going to say that I see that Luke has put up the map that shows where those scenic byways, at least at this point in time, the suggestion of where they should be.
Okay. I guess, Vice Chairman and member, we're just got to discuss what direction we want to go. Are we going to continue trying to amend and get the language right for something to be advertised to the public and to the county, or are we going to table this?
Well, I guess my question is this something that could apply just to future developments and not impose this on current homeowners, or current, property owners?
Well, George, if you look at the map, you can see that in some places along these scenic byways, there are, I'll say, significant parcels remaining that that could be developed. In other cases, it would be where individual already occupied properties, already improved properties, are proposing significant additions to the properties, or as Kyle said, a pool or something like that. And
Right.
as I understand it, the way the ordinance would work in that case would be that if the property owner was going to put the pool, let's say, but on the side of the house instead of the back of the house, the ordinance would encourage them to consider the view shed. And if they put it in the back of the house, that wouldn't be the problem. The problem is where you're changing the views. And I'm not even sure that the pool is a good example, because I'm not sure that a pool would be prohibited on the side of the house. But I'm just saying, so if they're contemplating an addition, for instance, they might be encouraged to put the addition on the back instead of the side.
Okay. And the way the ordinance is written now, it's not an encouraging ordinance. It's a, as Kyle mentioned, a shall or will ordinance.
Well, that's correct, George, because if you just say, if you just make it encouraging and it's not mandatory, there's no teeth to the ordinance. So
Right. Okay.
sometimes when we've rewritten ordinances, or when we've written ordinance, we will use a carrot as opposed to a stick approach, so that you provide the property owner with some incentive to follow the ordinance. But we didn't feel that that was something that was viable in this situation.
Okay, I understand.
So at this point, we're not asking that you approve the ordinance. What we're simply asking is, do you want the ordinance task force to continue working on this ordinance, which involves working with our consultants, which by necessity means a cost to the township, or if it's something that the Board of Supervisors say, you know what, let's just put this on the table for now and not spend any more time or energy on it at this point in time. We just need to know that.
Right. And if I may chime in to Jay's suggested what the action item for the board is this morning relative to direction to continue developing this. I think I want to point out that the reason this is something that the ordinance task force identified to work on is that such an ordinance is described in our 2009 comprehensive plan as something that the township should pursue adopting. So the ordinance task force, identified this as part of their ongoing mission, which is to implement the township's plans. So I'm new to staffing the ordinance task force, but I did recall that there was a meeting in July of 2019 where there was a mixed support for continuing to develop this draft legislation. And so in light of board turnover and staff turnover, I recommended that the ordinance task force come before the full Board of Supervisors and get direction before proceeding on revising this draft legislation any further.
So where are we at, George? What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I tried reading through it all last night, but I just need to understand it, what the impact is, what we're trying to achieve before, I form a firm opinion on this.
My mindset would be at this point, I don't have a problem with it for new developments. Also, I would say, larger parcels. And I don't know if that's even able to be broken up that way. That would be my first thing. My second thing is if we do it to cap a value at the alteration or the view shed additions that we're requiring them to do, so that a homeowner can discuss a project and know where they're going to be financially without having to to break the bank on doing a view shed.
I'll make a suggestion then. If George would like, perhaps we can set some time aside at a future task force meeting where we can focus just on this ordinance. And if he's available to attend, we can then bring him up to speed, so to speak. And if Kyle's interested in attending, and Jason as well, of course, we could do that if that would be amenable.
Yeah, that would be fine. I kind of agree with Kyle, and I guess that's what I was talking about earlier. Can it apply just to future development? So, my initial impression is basically what Kyle had said. But I would be available to go to a task force meeting.
Well, George, if you could look at the schedule for the task force meetings, I think they're the third Wednesday, Luke.
Yes, it would be the night before your regular session. So I suppose that would be February 17th, 7:30 p.m.
Well, and I'm saying if George looks at his schedule, he can get back to you and me, Luke, and then let us know whether it's the 17th or March would be better or whatever. And then we can try to get John Gatt there, who's the most intimately involved with this, and just do an overview and have a discussion about this proposed ordinance.
Okay.
That works.
Let's do that then, George. If you can look at your calendar, and Jay and Luke, if you could get back to the board with when you propose the ordinance task force, when this will be presented as the topic, then we can circle back around and attend that and get this back on the agenda to a future meeting.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Jay. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you. Moving on now to the scope of the planned stormwater repairs for the Marshall Creek subdivision, which is Aspen Drive. Matt?
Actually, I'm gonna introduce this real quick. I added this to the agenda because it was an agenda item at your regular session in January. I can say that both Matt and solicitor Mark Jonas have been working diligently on it, but we have no findings to announce today. Matt and Mark, please feel free to amend my statement if you feel necessary.
This is Mark Jonas. Good morning. I think that's an accurate statement, Luke. Matt has been very helpful in providing us with a background document. This is an old subdivision, so it predates a lot of measures and documentation that would be taking place today. So our research has not been completed yet. It narrows down to the issue of, is there any township obligation at all to effect stormwater management improvements within private property? We have a number of stormwater management facilities that are located on individual lots. There's no documentation that shows there's a homeowners association. There's no documentation to suggest that the stormwater management system was dedicated to the township. We know there's an interconnection between the stormwater system on the subdivision and the township stormwater system. That in and of itself may not impose any requirement for the township to effect improvements on private property. So it's a broad framework. We looked at the plans, we looked at the documents that Matt provided to us, but we don't have a final conclusion yet.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Well, with that being said, then we'll go ahead and wait for additional information and get that onto a future meeting if we need to, and we can adjust the homeowners' concerns. And now moving on, there's no new business. There's no subdivision applications. There's no ordinance resolutions.
I do have an update on subdivision. There's nothing for your consideration this morning, but I'd like to advise the board that late yesterday at the Planning Commission meeting, there was a vote to extend preliminary plan approval to the Diane Hamill Trust application. So that will appear on your work session agenda.
Okay. Thank you. And then ordinances and resolutions. There are none. Public comment on non-agenda items.
I've heard from one individual. It is Bruce Rawlings, Planning Commission Chair. Morning, Bruce.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good morning. I'm just keeping up with the Giant, and I know Kyle and Jason, you don't, I'm probably going to say the same thing, but I just wanted to know if there's anything that the public should know at this point, or is it still in litigation at this point? Not knowing what's going on, it is nice to know.
Bruce, it's still in litigation.
Okay.
I'm pretty certain you are much aware of that as well, Bruce. I think.
No, I'm not.
It's getting Bruce. This is getting to be quite a pattern of these meetings with you, asking the same question about litigation. Is there anything that, if you would like to email the board specific questions, that would probably be advantageous. It might get a response that answers your question a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah. If I was someone else and they asked the same question, you would probably say the same. I have the right as a homeowner in this township to ask those questions. Even though you get perturbed about it, I think it's nice that they have an update on what's going on in the township. I do a lot, and so that's just my opinion. I have the right to do that.
Bruce, you have every right to your opinion. I agree with you, but Bruce, you are an informed resident. You're the chairman of the Planning Commission, Bruce.
But I have no idea. But I have.
Who are you a voice for then, Bruce? Are you a voice for yourself? Are you speaking for yourself or on behalf of the residents? I'm just trying to understand where you're coming from.
I'm speaking as a resident and wanting to know if there's any updates on the Giant project.
And there is no
you told me, and I don't know that from Luke or Kyle or George or from you, except for when I asked the question. I'm not privy to the lawsuits. I only know what's going on in the Planning Commission and within the township, but not behind closed doors. I'm just wanting to know if there was anything new that came about that the township members or myself would know. I feel I have the right to ask that question.
I'm not saying that's right, Bruce, but you keep asking the same question every time. And
no, I don't know.
Bruce, we don't talk about litigation. We don't talk about litigation in public meetings. I can't help you with that. I'm sorry.
Bruce, can I piggyback off your question?
Yeah, sure.
I think it's a great question, and I think it's one that was asked. I believe the first time you had asked it this year was at the reorg meeting, where Supervisor Winters said that you had asked if you could have an update by the next meeting, and he said yes. That would be on the minutes of the January 4th reorg meeting. So I don't think it's unrealistic for you to ask again. When you do ask the second time, which was the last meeting in January, you were told we don't discuss litigation, but that's not what you were told the first time you asked. So I'm with you. I also am curious because I'm wondering how all parties involved in these cases are getting a right to a fair proceeding with only two supervisors making the decisions on this. So I'm not part of it as well. So I think it's a great question, and I would like an update as well. I've asked for those for email forms of that communication with the board and the parties involved. I've yet to receive them. So I think it's a great question, especially as a supervisor.
Kyle, I'm not really sure how you continue to say that you are not in the loop. I've asked you, I think now 3 times, to just email the board your questions so we can address them. You have not done that yet. I mean, I have no comment at this point for your questions.
No comment to supervisor getting the documentation for a trial that's going on.
I have no comment for you.
No, hey, that's
So-
absolutely fine. As I said, it's been asked and answered numerous times. You state no comment, no comment. But I think Mr. Rawlings' question is fantastic because he asked the question, as I said, on the 4th. You told him you'll give an update. You never did. So I think that that's realistic.
Well, let me ask you a question, Mr. Scribner. Did anything change in litigation from the last meeting to this meeting? There's no update if there is no change in litigation. So once there's an update, I would be more than happy to personally call Bruce and yourself.
Why don't you ask me if there's a change? How would I know if there's a change? I haven't been included in it.
Well, check your emails. I mean, I haven't either. Has not been any changes because we haven't received anything. So
Maybe in the last 3 weeks. What about the last 3-4 months? Has there been any changes?
are you done? Are you done with your comments?
No, I'm just asking a question.
I have no comment for you. I'm not responding to you.
So Jason, this is Bruce again. All I'm trying to do is knowing if there is any updates that the public should know. At this point, you're saying there has been no change, and that's fine too. I just would like to keep myself abreast of what's going on in the township.
Bruce, I know you do. Thank you.
So that's all I care. So, Kyle, I thank you for standing up for my questions, and I hope you both and George have a good weekend coming up, and let's keep this township moving forward. Thank you.
Bruce, before you go, I received an email from 20 plus volunteers in the township that were very upset the way things are going in the township and the way that the new board is taking things. And there was talk of a walk-off, so to speak, from their volunteering positions. And I would ask you, because I know you are a voice of reason, and I've talked to most of them, and I think I've got it pretty much under control right now. But I would ask you to please, though I agree it seems like the right thing to do, it would also be hurting people like you, people like myself, and people like our township manager that are trying to keep things going here. So if you wouldn't mind being the voice of reason with any of those volunteers, to ask them to please stick with us, and things will get better in the next year or two. I promise.
I will do that.
I will, Kyle, maybe you could with the remaining board members, so we could have a better understanding of which volunteers are concerned, and maybe it can be addressed as a board rather than you taking initiative to field 20 some volunteers concerned with the walk off. This is the first I've heard of this, so I don't really have anything to say until I see some of the emails or the concerns. Any volunteer can feel free to give me a call. I can meet with them. No one's saying that the volunteer in the township are not appreciated.
Say that again. No one's saying what?
I don't know. I don't really understand what the purpose of the volunteers' concerns are. I haven't heard them yet, but no one has been trying to say that volunteers are not appreciated in the township. So this is new to me. I'd have to.
I don't think it was that. I think it was the way that they felt that things were going in the township. So, but nonetheless, if you weren't included in that email, I understand why.
Okay, well, maybe you could forward it to me. That maybe help me understand. So, Is there any other comments on non-agenda items? Luke?
Jason, can I make one other comment?
Sure.
Thank you. Back about 1 to 2 years ago, when the board members came together, this reminded me about emails. And Jason, you asked to be copied on all emails, and Kyle asked the same thing, and Jay was involved in that. Is the township board and the new manager emailing each other with and copying everybody else on a daily basis and all things? Because that was something that I think, Jason, you were really very strong about. This, you wanted to have copies of emails just so you knew what was going on. I'm sure Kyle would love to have copies of emails and knowing going on. It just seems like there's a little bit of conflict of who's getting copies, who's not getting copies. And I don't know. I'm just listening and remembering back a little bit, and I think maybe we can get back to helping each other, keep everybody informed. So that's just something I remember from the past. So thank you.
I thank you for bringing it up, Bruce, because that was one of my big concerns early 2018 and 19. And basically, the consensus was I was not privy as a supervisor to the solicitor's emails. That was what the final determination was when I requested the emails from Kristen Camp and Buckley Bryan. And as far as moving forward, yes, there has been the inclusion of all supervisors for emails. I believe Luke is copied on everything as well as we have an email address, Bruce, that goes to all three board members individually, so it makes it much easier for vendors.
It just sounded like that Kyle's not getting all the information, so I'm just would like to make sure everybody's communicating, because yes, we as a township are trying to communicate with each other. And Kyle, to your point about some walk-off, I know nothing about a walk-off or people leaving at this point. I will always be very positive for the township because I live in the township and I want to make sure this township flourishes in the years to come.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Mr. Chairman, there are no further members of the public for comment.
Okay. Is there any notices? None. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.